Okay, I'm going to do this video one more time, and then that's it. And if this goes right, we have a video. If it goes wrong, we don't have a video. I've been quite busy, as you guys know, doing my course, and it's been very hard trying to juggle gym instructor course and gym training, actually training in the gym, and a full-time job. And then on top of that, my craft, and then on top of that, a social life it's been really hard. It has, though I've been enjoying things, and it's nice to know that I'm actually stepping up the ladder and actually getting closer to where I want to be in my life. So it's good. It's a good feeling, and I'm getting full marks as well. Okay, so today, the video I want to talk about is gaining a familiar spirit, and the whole point of this is I've had a lot of emails. Let's just go back in history and actually say what a familiar spirit is. Now, to a witch, this is historically a familiar spirit would be a demon who worked with a witch, who had a relationship with a witch, and who made magic happen for a witch. Now, they would say that the witch would pledge her alliance to the devil and renounce God and all religion, and through this the devil would then grant the witch a familiar spirit and would give the witch a mark. Normally it would be an extra teat, an extra nipple, in which the familiar would suckle from and suckle out the witch's blood. And the witch would traditionally give the familiar spirit blood and feed it also into an earthenware pot or a jar in order to house that spirit, so that she almost had a physical body for that familiar spirit. Now, in modern contemporary traditional witchcraft, a familiar spirit is basically a helper. A familiar spirit is quite shamanic in some ways. It's the idea of the witch can send forth their will to a spirit, and in which the spirit can then go and do its work and do the witch's work. Now, spirit relationships spirit relation. You have to, in order to work with the spirit, you have to have a relationship with it. There are, not all the time, but in terms of familiar spirits, a relationship is a very key point to it. You can't just walk up to somebody in the street and be like, hey, give me £20, because they don't know you. Rather, if you built up a friendship with them and you gave them things and they gave you things, and you said, look, I'm really stuck for money, could I please have £20? Voila. Now, the idea of the familiar spirit in modern traditional witchcraft is that the spirit will help the witch in all charms and all spells and accomplish things that the witch will want to happen. Now, how does one gain a familiar spirit? Now, traditionally, familiar spirits can be hereditary. The famous Robert Cochrane, who founded the 1734 Clan of Tubal Cain tradition, he said that he had a familiar spirit called Tomkins, who used to bang a plate above his fireplace, who was a hereditary family spirit handed down. Such as in the case of the Pendle witches, Elizabeth Device had a black dog spirit who she claimed she inherited off of Old Demdike, who was her grandmother. And Old Demdike persuaded Elizabeth Device to suckle, to allow the dog to suckle from her breast. And it was then that the pact was made, and the dog became the familiar spirit of Elizabeth Device. In terms of the Chelmsford Trial, which is another witch trial in Essex. Essex in England is known as witch country, or witch county, as a lot of witchcraft occurred in Essex. There was a familiar spirit who was called Sapphan, who was a white-spotted cat who belonged to a witch called Elizabeth Francis. Now, she then claimed she inherited this Sapphon, which is an abbreviation for Satan. She inherited this spirit from her grandmother. And then later on, she passed it down to a witch called Agnes Waterhouse. Sapphon also could change, not only come in the form of a white spotted cat, but also that of a toad or a dog, so forth. That's just a little bit of history for you regarding familiar spirits. Now, as I said, it is quite a shamanic concept in modern traditional witchcraft, and the idea is that they help you in your workings and stuff like that. A familiar spirit, as I said, works on a relationship level. You can't just have a familiar spirit and just feed it when you want to. It doesn't work like that. You feed that familiar spirit as much as you want that familiar spirit to work for you. It has to level itself out. You can't just randomly go up to it and say, blah, blah. You need to establish a relationship with it first. So yeah, how do we gain a familiar spirit? As I've just said, familiar spirits can be inherited through family generations, and spirits tend to have a tendency. It's not the first time that it's known for spirits to carry on through the generations and follow people. It's quite in folklore and a lot of tales. It's quite a normal thing to happen. Not a normal thing, but it's not a rare occasion thing. It does happen. It's been documented in fairy tales and so forth. A familiar spirit also can just approach a person. In a lot of the old witch trials, a lot of familiar spirits approached a person, and basically there would be a term of contract, a barter, and the witch would then say, the familiar spirit would say, "Do you want to work with me?" And the witch would say, "Well, can you do this? Can you do that?" And the familiar spirit would say, "No, I can't do this, but however, I could do this," and so forth. So it would almost be like a contract. A contract would be made, a pact with that spirit would be made upon meeting it, after bartering with it for a while, and then the relationship would be established between the spirit and the witch, and then work would be done. I had a spirit known as a Grimalkin approach me, and it came to me and said, do you want me as a familiar spirit? Can I work for you? Blah, blah, blah. And I said, yes, only if you do such and such. And then, of course, there was a term of barterment. However, after a while, that contract ended and that familiar spirit left. And familiar spirits don't always have to stick with you for the rest of your life. A lot of people say that they do. However, I've known different, and in a lot of old witch trials as well, it's not an uncommon thing for a familiar spirit to disappear for a while and then come back. Now, how does another way in which somebody gains a familiar spirit, the modern traditional witchcraft way, there's a process known as reddening the bones, which is Neolithic in practice. However, the bones are rubbed with red ochre. Now, of course, if somebody had the skull of a hare, the bones could be rubbed with red ochre, and the spirit could be conjured up, and maybe a barter could be made, a bartering system, and a contract could be made for a lengthy amount of time. That spirit is then given a name, and then the name only is known between the witch and the spirit, because to have something's name is to have power over it. So that's one way in which a witch could gain a familiar spirit. Another way, and I actually read a blog called American Folkloric Witchcraft, and they are the 1734 Clan of Tubal Cain tradition of witchcraft. And they done a blog on actually how to gain a familiar spirit, and I will put the link underneath. And it's basically, basics are, you have a sixpence, or you have a coin, or maybe a tuppence, or like an old-fashioned coin, and you call up the master, the lord of the Sabbath, the witch god, and you call him up in his sabbatic form. It will be very, very dark. Like, you'll call him up in his darkest form, and then you'll talk to him, you'll speak to him, you'll ask him for a familiar spirit. And you'll have, there is a bartering system made with, with the master, and you barter. And then you'll have a earthenware pot, a vessel, in which you place various objects that are attributed to that spirit. So, for instance, if that spirit is a hare, you have a hare's foot, along with various things that are associated with hares, and then you can create a sigil for that spirit. Sometimes the spirits can come and give you a sigil. The Witches of Dagenham, I believe it was Joan Upney, if I'm wrong, I do apologise, but she claimed to have connect through to her familiar spirit by drawing specific symbols on the floor in order to conjure up that spirit. So yeah, that could be a way. Sometimes the spirits will give you symbols. They will give you a specific symbol to work with and to utilise within your craft in order to conjure up that spirit. Or they will give you a name. Or vice versa, sometimes a witch will give the spirit a name. Anyway, within that pot, that vessel, it can be a jar, it can be, just like a jar with stuff in. It can be an earthenware clay pot. You place all the things attributed to that spirit, or the type of spirit that you wish to gain. You will then tread the mill around the vessel of the spirit, whilst chanting and chanting and chanting and building up energy, summoning forth that spirit. And then once the spirit is summoned, talk to them. And this is the thing, a lot of people tend to forget. Relationships with a familiar spirit is key. You need to have a relationship. As I said before, you can't just walk up to a stranger in the street and say, can I have 20 quid? However, if you made friends with that stranger and then one day came up to them after you'd been giving them loads of stuff and said, look, I'm really short for money, can you help me out? They're going to. It's a lot more likely. So yeah, American Folkloric Witchcraft, they do a very good blog on how to gain a familiar spirit, and I quite enjoyed reading it. I haven't particularly done the ritual, however, it does look like it would work. This is just from experience, it does look like it would work and that somebody would gain a familiar spirit. This is not me being nasty, this is not me being horrible, but I don't want any emails regarding the familiar spirit that somebody has summoned up, because I don't want that to be between you, your spirit, and me. I don't want anything to do with that. You have asked me a question, and I'm just giving you the way in which you can connect to your familiar spirit, but I don't want to take responsibility for that spirit. Let's see. Make regular offerings to your familiar spirit. Perform the hoozle to your familiar spirit, or the red mill, or the trollhood, the bewitched feast, known to a lot of traditional witches, which is a way in which the witch will link in with the spirits and become as one with the spirits. That would be a very good way in order to connect with your familiar spirit. Talk to it. Tell it about your day. Tell it how you've been. If you have that problem at work with the boss, tell them, just start slowly. Don't get a familiar spirit and then be like, right, okay, so I want to raise a storm tonight. It's not going to happen like that. You need to be slow and subtle and patient. Now, another way in which a witch can be given a familiar spirit, there's been a lot of cases where a witch has dedicated themselves to the gods or to the particular deity in which they work with, and then they have been given a familiar spirit. I know a couple of people this has happened to. So yeah, that may be a way. Through dedication, the witch will then be granted a familiar spirit. But yeah, those are just ways in which somebody can gain a familiar spirit. As I said, I don't mean to be horrible, I don't mean to be nasty, but I don't want to be involved in somebody's affairs with their familiar spirit. I'm just answering a question I've been asked quite a lot. So there we have it. Make sure you make regular offerings to your spirit. Talk to your spirit a lot, once a week at least. Make time for that spirit. Listen to that spirit as well. If you have any weird dreams, if you have any anything that comes into your head, listen to what the spirit has to say to you, and pay attention, carry it out. If you make a bartering system with a spirit, if you say, oh, if you do this for me, I will give you blood, and it does it for you, and you don't give it blood, you will piss that spirit off. They are still spirits. They still have the ability to be annoyed. So be careful. Be careful. If you make a promise to that spirit, keep to it. Don't dawdle away. Don't do that. Keep to that promise. Remember, to have something's name is to have power over it. So you have the name of that spirit. Do not tell anybody else. It is none of their business, nor should it be. Keep that familiar spirit's name completely to you. What else? Thank it as well. Be thankful. Say thank you for what it has done. If it has accomplished something, give it praise. Feed it with praise. Say thank you so much. I'm very happy that you are here. I'm very happy you are my familiar spirit. So yeah, and above all, house it as well. If you have a house for it, you give it a physical form. It's like you bring it into this world. Rather than just not having a house for it. By having a house for something, you give it a physical place within this world, within this reality. So that's a good thing to do. So yeah, I'll put the link for American Folkloric Witchcraft down there. I hope you guys enjoy it, and peace over and out. I know this video has been long, but see you guys.